The Mercedes GLC 350e is an incredibly capable ride. And one big benefit is that it's a plug-in hybrid, which means that you're looking at fully electric mileage available inside of the ride. You get all of the benefits of the Mercedes world, like incredible handling, quiet interior with all of the tech that you could ever want. In this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know about the 350e. Pricing for the GLC in Canada starts at around $64,900 versus a little over $61,000 down in the US, with the price point going up depending on how you have it configured. One thing that I do like about the Mercedes lineup is that there aren't a lot of trim levels that are available, but there are some different packages which are going to take this ride to the next level. This one is in the Spectral Blue Metallic exterior, also known as the Starling Blue in the US. On top of that, it's pretty much fully loaded with the AMG Line Package, the exclusive trim, the Pinnacle trim, and a number of other great features. You're only going to find the 350e with Mercedes 4MATIC, so an all-wheel drive system. And the overall handling that you get inside of the ride is fantastic. That's one thing Mercedes cars are known for, is not only the incredible handling inside of the rides, but the incredible quietness that you get because of the great suspension system. There are a series of different wheel sizes and styles that are available. Inside of the 350e, the default is an 18-inch wheel. That looks okay. But then you've got either 19s or 20-inch wheels that are available. This one is the AMG 20-inch multi-spoke wheel. And normally I would go for strictly blacked out wheels, but the overall style here, even though it's a nice little black and silver contrast, I think looks fantastic. The front end style of the 350e is sharp. You're always going to find LED headlamps inside of the ride, but when you get into the Pinnacle trim level, the LED headlamps have dynamic bending available. So as you're turning left or right, you're going to notice that the headlamps follow the direction that you're turning, which just makes visibility at night that much easier in comparison. There's a lot of other great technology in the front end here too. So you've got the forward sensing system, along with the option for a front-facing camera. So that's going to give you a full 360 view. And the camera quality that you get inside of this ride is fantastic. There is also an available driver assistance package, which I think this one is only really missing that feature. And that package is going to give you a lane centering system and a number of other great highway driving safety features. That one package, I would say, is probably one I would absolutely look at if I was considering the 350e as my next ride. Style-wise in the front here, I love it. I've got to say, I absolutely love this blue, and the deep blue with the black and silver highlights looks incredible. Inside of the GLC 350e, you're looking at a 2-liter turbocharged engine that's paired with an electric motor. Combined power output is 313 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. So this thing has some balls. We're gonna drop down into sport mode now and get back up to highway speed, going in 3, 2, and... Oh my God. 100. That's so good. That's so good. But the sound. Oh, the sound that you get from the engine, even though this is only a 2-liter. So is it the most powerful Mercedes you can find? No, not at all. But with the power output that you get, the combined ratings are fantastic. I think that's probably going to be good enough for the majority of people that are looking for power inside of their cars. I love seeing that deep blue all throughout the bay. You've got a little engine cover and you can easily top up all of your fluids as necessary. The warranty inside of the Mercedes world is okay. Your basic and powertrain are 4 years, 50,000 mile, 80,000 kilometer, and there is always the option of increasing your warranty at time of purchase. But just do yourself a favor and make sure you take it in for regularly scheduled maintenance, regular oil changes to make sure you get the best possible life out of your car. It will absolutely thank you if you do. The 350e is not a big SUV by any stretch. It's getting inside of the first row. Ooh. Easy enough. Second. equally as easy. One nice thing is that you are going to find assist handles across all 4 doors if you need them. The side view mirrors inside of the 350e are power folding. They also have turn signals in them, along with a side-mounted camera when you get that full 360 view. They also have the blind spot monitoring system and their auto dimming. So if somebody's in behind you later on at night, you'll notice that these start to dim down a little bit to make it easier to see. There's intelligent access, so you can push there to lock the doors or slide your hand in order to unlock. Look at that beautiful Neva interior. But before we get there, along the side here, you've got this nice leather highlight along with this interesting applique along the door handle itself. Got your basic unlock lock buttons. Adjusting your seat is going to be done here. There's at least heated seats with the option for a ventilated first row seat inside of the ride with driver seat memory. This one has the upgraded audio system. We'll talk about that in a second. But outside of that, the buttons here will be the same. So power adjusting side view mirrors, your basic window controls, kill off power to the rear windows. There's some door storage there with your fuel door release and the trunk release. On the inside, you got a switch to figure out what's going on with your running lamps, turn your fogs on or off. There's an electronic parking brake and power telescoping steering wheel. These are the thermoplastic rubber trays that you're going to find right from Mercedes. The build quality on them is fantastic, and I recommend getting these if you live in colder climates, somewhere where they're going to get muddy, etc., because it's way easier to clean these trays off compared to the regular carpeted mats. You've got a little Mercedes scuff plate here that glows nicely at nighttime. As much as I love these seats, the Neva AMG interior looks fantastic. The downside to the lighter seats, you can already see that there's some seat markings going on there. So blue jeans, darker pants, and these seats do not mix. But it looks so good with that blue. All right, let's do a start up here. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Mercedes GLC 350e. So, starting off, the steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be power telescoping. So down by your left knee, you've got a switch there so you can go in, out, up and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you find it, release, and you're good to go. And one nice thing is that you can have the steering wheel set up the way that you'd like to, set up your driver's seat the way that you'd like to, along with your side view mirrors. And then along the side there, you've got a series of memory buttons. So all you're going to do is push the M button for a second, and then either 1, 2, or 3 for it to remember your own personal profile. So as you go to adjust things out, if there are multiple drivers, you can hop in, hit whatever option you'd like, and you're set to go. And so many things that you need to know. So the stock along the left-hand side is going to be for your wipers there. So you could adjust out using the tip there in order to move into different modes. You've got your blinkers there. There are also buttons in order to be able to turn on your rear wiper there as well. You can pull in towards you in order to flash your high beams out, but when you are in the auto mode, there's a button along the very bottom you can push in order to turn yourself into a multi-auto mode. So what this means is that if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it's automatically going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to turn them off before turning them right back on again. But if you want to permanently lock your high beams out, you're going to switch into the headlamp mode, so the far right. You're then going to push away in order to turn the high beams on, pull towards you, or you can push away again in order to turn them off. It's just that when you're in the auto mode, you've got that auto light feature that's available instead. You can still flash your high beams out in that auto mode. You just have to be in the headlamp mode to lock them out permanently. Stick along the right-hand side is your shifter. So with the brake in, you can push up to get into reverse with your full 360 camera showing up there, and so many good looks. You've got your front-facing, rear-facing. You can even do a side-mounted camera instead, so either side. And then you can do an auto mode where that's going to give you kind of this top-down, like bird's eye view. And then you can swipe across using your finger instead. So getting in and out of tight spaces, really neat. There's also your neutral mode. So you're just going to drop down lightly to get to neutral, all the way down for drive. And then there's a button on the tip of the stick in order to be able to put yourself into park instead. Then, so many different buttons and functions, but the car has paddle shifters. So you've got your minus on the left-hand side, plus on the right-hand side. So if you wanted to be able to drop down gears in order to give yourself some oomph in order to go forward, that's available. But if you've never used paddle shifters before, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough explaining how paddles work and when you want to use them. Then, so many different options. So along this side, so along the bottom is going to be your cruise control system. So the bottom right side there, you can toggle the system on or off this way. When you've got the cruise control system turned on, you could then push down or up in order to set your speed. You could then slide your finger up or down in order to increase or decrease 1 kilometer, 1 mile per hour at a time, or you push up or push down in order to decrease 10 kilometers at a time or 5 miles per hour at a time, so pushing up or down instead. You can hit the cancel button to pause your speed, you can hit the brake to pause your speed, and then you can hit resume in order to resume your previously set speed instead. And then the other one is a distance indicator. So there are 4 unique levels. It's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. Like a 1 second, 2 second, 3 second type of a deal. I personally find level 1 on residential streets works the best. You might want to be on 2 or 3 on highways or interstates, depending on your comfort level. And then level 4 with the cruise control system turned on if you're in slippery, snowy conditions instead. And then you can easily just toggle it off. So it's really straightforward being able to use the system. But if you actually want to see the adaptive cruise control system used in person to figure out how it actually works, check down in the description of this video. You've got a pad along the upper left side, and that is going to let you change out the look of the cluster screen and then some different options for the head-up display. I'll show you that one as we move inside. Along the bottom right side here, there's a voice command prompt where you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, you can navigate using your voice. Turn on the heated steering wheel.
Switching on the steering wheel heating for you now.
So the voice assistant is pretty useful there. It's going to get toasty actually. Turn off heated steering wheel.
Okay, I'm switching off the steering wheel heating.
So you'll be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, you can navigate using your voice, you can adjust the climate using your voice. You saw there, you can do so many different things. It's a very robust system. If you had a phone hooked up, so Android or iPhone device, you could do a long button push and hold instead, and that's going to activate either your Siri or your Google Assistant. There's a little favorites button here as well. You can set that up to do something different. There's also a volume rocker, so you can adjust your volume this way. You can answer or hang up on a phone call, and then you've got a home button here with back, and this is going to give you the flexibility of navigating through the screen there. So think of this as like a little trackpad where you can move through into any of the available options. So jumping into your vehicle settings, there's a basic back button as well. And then even if you're in things like your radio or your media, you'd have the flexibility of using your finger here in order to be able to move around to different options. So back into your home screen there instead. So I love that you've got that option. So rather than having to fiddle with the screen, you can just use the pad along the right side here in order to adjust out what's going on in the infotainment. And then I mentioned the pad here is for inside of the cluster screen. So moving into the cluster now, actually, let's get that. Yeah, that works perfectly. So you've got your speedometer along the left-hand side, your tachometer off to the right-hand side. But since this is a plug-in hybrid, it works slightly differently. So as you go to put your foot down, think of the power gauge here as the amount of power that you're using. So you've got this one here when you've got the gas engine going. When you're in electric mode, you've got the amount of power that you're using. And then you've got the charge gauge here, and what that one's going to do, it's for regenerative braking. So as you go to brake, you'll notice that the charge gauge drops, and what that's doing is it's capturing energy to try to recharge the battery. So you can charge it up 3 different ways. So way number 1 is by actually plugging yourself into the wall. Way number 2 is as you drive, then the vehicle is going to recharge the battery. And then way number 3 is through regenerative braking. So as you go to brake, charge goes down in order to try to charge the vehicle up there instead. You've got your current fuel gauge along the bottom left-hand side, along with your current time. Vehicle's ready to drive. You can see there the current outside temperature, along with the gear that you're currently in along the bottom right-hand side, and then which drive mode that you're in. So you've got a selector that's going to let you change out your different drive modes here. So hold on, let's look here because it looks so nice. So you've got a bunch of unique drive modes that are available. So you've got an off-road mode that's available. You've got your basic battery hold, which if you've got charge, what it's going to do is it's going to hold on to that charge. There's also an electric mode. So with enough charge, you can be in strictly electric driving. There's a hybrid mode. So the vehicle figures out when it's going to switch between either the gas engine or the electric motor. Sport mode holds onto the RPMs a little bit more. So rather than shifting at, let's say, like 2,000 or 3,000 RPM in the regular mode, it might get closer to red line in order to give you a sportier performance. Then there's an available individual mode if you wanted to customize this and make it your own, that little bit more instead. But you can see that as you drive between the different modes, it's going to change up what's going on there as well. And then you've also got your battery level there. So as of right now, I've got 0 battery left, but when you're charged up, you get about 87-ish kilometers, so a little over 50 miles of fully electric range inside of the ride. But it's kind of neat. Then you've got your different icons there. So you've got whether or not you're plugged in as the driver, if you've got the cruise control system turned on and things like that. Then I mentioned you've got your pad along this side. So you hit the home icon there, and that's going to let you swipe across into different modes. So do you want to be in a sport mode? Oh, I love that look. Oh, that looks so good. Back to a home mode there. You've got your classic view if you wanted to have full map in cluster instead. So if you had an active route going, that would show up there. You've got a basic driver assistance mode. So if you had different driver assistance settings turned on, enabled, etc. There's an off-road mode, which I think that looks so cool too. Such a nice look. But you can see there, all of your gauges are done slightly differently. And then there's an available service mode. So you can see what's going on with everything. You can see what's going on with your messages, if there's anything there, when you're due for your maintenance, your current tire pressure, your coolant temperatures, and things like that. Your best bet? For me personally, like, I love the look of the sport mode. For the most part though, I'm a big fan of just being in the classic setup instead. And when you're in the classic setup, you can swipe up or down to get to some sub-pages. So you can see along the outside there, you've got a bunch of dots, and that's going to be the sub-pages that are available. So you've got your total trip counter there, so your odometer as well. Dropping down a level is going to be a trip counter from reset also. Then if you push OK, that's going to give you the flexibility of being able to reset those options as well. So if you'd like to reset your trip counters, you can. There's an eco display, so as you start to drive better, more economically friendly, you're going to notice that that counter goes up, dropping down into your total consumption level. So when you're in gas versus electric mode, what's your consumption been? Your attention assist. So if you start to veer over too many times to that signaling, you're waving all over the road, eventually that's going to tell you that you should probably take a break, but you can turn that off through the infotainment system there if you'd like. Dropping down into your radio where you can swipe across in order to change out your presets. And then you've also got your mapping cluster there down to your basic odometer again. Then as you hop back to the home button there and swipe up, all of these options are going to be for the head-up display. So you've got a series of options here. There's your minimal look, sport, standard, off-road, and then you can adjust the settings out too. So you'd be able to swipe up or down in order to raise or lower the height of the head-up display. You can then swipe either left or right in order to be able to adjust out the brightness. I always just recommend keeping the brightness up, and then you've got the flexibility of toggling the head-up display off or turning the head-up display back on again instead. So there's a good amount of space inside of this car. So with the seat as far down as it's going to go, up overhead, I've got 3.5, almost 4 inches of headspace there. So 6'4", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this ride. It's plenty spacious though, and the seats are incredibly comfortable. And there are so many different style interiors you're going to find inside of this car. I said, I love the look of the white seats, but practically speaking, especially if you have kids, they are going to get messy. So I would probably go for one of the darker interiors myself. But one thing that I love about the Mercedes lineup is how much flexibility you've got. You can customize so many different things, from the seat colors, even to the appliques that pop up all the way throughout the vehicle. You can customize these to make it your own. So if you wanted a unique style, that's available. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Mercedes GLC 350e. Now, this is the only infotainment that you're going to find inside of the ride. It's got factory navigation and a bunch of other features. So let's dive in. I'll show you what you need to know. So you've got this, which is going to be for your navigation. You've got a little tab on the top, so if you swipe down, that's going to get you to a series of quick launch functions. So you can toggle the head-up display on or off, turn off your stability control. You can raise the vehicle up as well, which is useful if you're going off-road. The vehicle also does have a manual shifting mode. You are going to find paddle shifters inside of the ride, so it's your minus on the left-hand side, plus on the right-hand side, so you can drop gears if you'd like to in order to gain some speed to launch you forward. But if you've never used paddle shifters before and you're not sure how they work, check down in the description of this video for an explanation on how you can use them and when you want to use them. There's downhill brake control, your park sensing system, so as you get closer to obstacles, it can beep at you. There's interior protection, so it's going to utilize all of the sensors inside the vehicle for an alarm. Same idea with your towaway alarm, so if your vehicle's locked and the vehicle's getting towed, you're going to get a notification letting you know that the vehicle's being towed. And then a series of all settings, which we'll dive into as we get further into the screen. Along the top, you've got some additional options here, so your 5G connection along with your current time, but you can go through all of these options here. And then you've got your climate control settings that are baked right into the bottom of the screen. You can easily adjust out your climate this way. One nice thing is that you can also use the voice command prompt, so on the steering wheel there, or by saying, "Hey Mercedes," in order to activate your prompt. And then you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice. You can even adjust climate control using your voice instead. But all of your climate settings are baked right into the screen here. You've got an advanced climate menu, so do you want to have it going to your windshield face feet, some sort of combination. If the passenger side was different than the driver, you can sync it back up from there. There are air quality options as well, so there is a refresh mode available. And then there's also your pre-entry climate control. So that's when you get into departure times, which we'll cover off as we get deeper into the hybrid version of the screen there, so the hybrid option. But what that's going to do is it's going to give you the flexibility of preconditioning the cabin. So rather than using the battery or using the gas as you start, you essentially precondition the cabin, and then the car is going to be warm or cold for you based off of your set time. But let's dive into navigation first. If you hit that icon along the very top, you can look at all of your previous destinations, gas stations, look at parking, routes, and things like that. So you can see different options that are available for either your route or for charging, so setting your departure times and things like that. Searching for addresses is straightforward. So you can search by GPS coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search by point of interest icons. You can search for other things. So searching for Timmy Ho's, so Tim Hortons. See what's available there. And here you can see a ton of different options available. So let's choose one that's a little bit further away. You can see there, you've now got some route options. So if there were different ways that you could get to the end destination, it's just that these are going to be the quickest routes. Yeah, so that's just going to be the only route available that would make sense. And then you can just hit start.
The route is being calculated.
There you go.
Now turn right.
So you can see that information there, but one cool thing is that if your Mercedes has the head-up display, you'd be able to see your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the display, and then even through the cluster screen. So you've got the option of moving up or down using this pad here, but moving down, you've got your full map and cluster view there too. So you can see your turn-by-turn directions a few different ways, just depending on how you have your vehicle spec'd out. And then you can hit this in order to be able to close, expand into all the turns that you need to make. You could hit this to mute out all of your notifications. If you don't want those turn-by-turn notifications, you can hit this again if you wanted to cancel out the route completely, or if you wanted to look at other destinations. So maybe you wanted to go and get gas. Let's go ahead and search, see what's available. And we've got some options here, so you can either add it or replace it. So adding it means we're adding it as a stop versus replacing as we're going to fully replace the route instead. So we've now got two different places that we're going. So we've got our gas station that we're going to stop at first, and then after we get to the gas station, we're going to turn back in order to get to the Tim Hortons. And then you can hit the X icon along the very top in order to cancel out your route. You can hit the search box again to look at all of your previous destinations. If you hit the little three icons here, you can delete just the individual entry or everything, so all of your previous search for addresses. So just from a general safety perspective, it might be useful to do that. If you've got favorites set up, that would be available. One of the big benefits here is that if you've got a favorite set up, you hit the voice command prompt, you'd be able to say navigate home, navigate to work, or any of the other favorites, and it'll create a route to those destinations instead. And back. Pinch to zoom capabilities there. You could also kind of do a little drag around if you wanted to change up the heading there. You could adjust your heading this way instead, but the 3D heading looks great. And then recenter. If you're just kind of moving around, center would bring it back to you if you'd like. You can connect the device from there, but that's using factory navigation. Only other thing to point out is that you could use it with or without a profile. So you've got the flexibility of adjusting out user profiles. One of the benefits there is that it's going to remember all of your previously searched for addresses. If you've got different things set up for presets, phones that have been connected and things like that, but you could use factory navigation without a user profile logged in. You can delete all of your data. So if you've been using the maps on the vehicle, you can delete all of the information there. Hopping back home brings you up to this icon now, the icon tray, and that gives you a bunch of options. So apps gives you a few basic things, including some games. So if you're just waiting to pick somebody up, hoping to kill some time, you'd have the flexibility of playing games right through the screen here if you'd like, and just other basic apps, so weather apps and things like that. App Store is available here too, and that's going to give you the flexibility of downloading different apps, so just depending on what's available. This is where you can get into some additional subscription products, so that is available there. Takes a minute to load up. And then some comfort settings. So you've got some seat settings and ambient light. So with your kinetics, you've got the flexibility of adjusting out. Do you want your backrest going, your seat service, and how long do you want that option to go for? There are some additional heating settings and then automatic seat positioning. So you could easily adjust the seat. Adjusting the seat is done just along the driver's side door for this side. It's an interesting touch the way that it works. I actually kind of love it. So you can slide forwards and backwards, things like that. There's seat memory that's available here as well, with the option for heated and then ventilated first row seats, just depending on how you have it built out. So you can adjust your seats that way, but you'd also have the flexibility of adjusting in. So you put in your height, and then the vehicle can automatically adjust the seat and the steering wheel for your ideal height. It's kind of neat. And then with your ambient light, there are a series of different options available. So you can change it out if you wanted an individual color. So you can kind of lightly see it there. It looks really good later on at night. So you'd have the flexibility to customize it and make that your own. And then multicolor is going to give you a series of different looks. So you've got multiple color schemes that are available. Again, later on at night, looks really good. You can adjust the brightness. You can change up effects as well, so it looks different as you get into the vehicle when you go to lock, things like that. From here, next up is going to be adding in a phone. So as of right now, no phones are connected, and we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So on your phone, you're just going to go into your Bluetooth settings, connect a device here, and we're waiting for iPhone 14 Pro to show up, or whatever your phone name is there. There we go. Pin numbers match up, so let's go ahead and pair. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And you can stop here, so you'd be able to make phone calls, and then you could also do things like stream audio right through the screen here. But one of the nice things about being on iPhones is that you do have wireless CarPlay inside of the ride. It is backwards compatible, so if you wanted to, you could hook up over USB if you'd like to, so USB-C, Lightning, etc. And then we've got the option for wireless, so you're just going to hit use CarPlay, okay, start CarPlay, and it's going to take a few seconds there, and look at that. We are now fully connected to the ride. So you've got your CarPlay set up here. And this is as full screen as CarPlay is going to get. So you'll always have your climate control settings at the bottom of the screen. But on CarPlay, you've got your little home screen here. So this essentially is the home screen. You've always got your map that was open last. You've got your search box, and then you've also got podcasts or any sort of music that you might be listening to. You can hit the icon here either to get to the icon view or home screen, but you can also swipe across if you'd like. You can see which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last, your connection levels, as well as your battery level. Then you can swipe across to get to different options. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that are available inside of the screen here. Downside to Apple CarPlay is that there's no pinch to zoom capabilities in any of the map applications, so no options there at all. But my favorite map application to use is Waze, and big reason why, as you start to drive, you can see if there's any sort of traffic that's there, if there are speed traps that are set up, so if you see that there are cops there, people are pretty good at marking those off, and you can mark them off yourself. So if you see that there's a speed trap, if there's a crash, hazards on the highway, things like that, you'd have that flexibility. Zooming in and out is just done this way, straightforward, but yeah, like I said, Waze is my go-to app for maps when I'm using Apple CarPlay. You can't play videos through Apple CarPlay either. You can customize the layout a little bit though, so you can adjust out your wallpaper. So if you wanted to change it up to be more suited for you, you could put it into driving focus mode, showing album art when you're listening to audio and things like that. So fairly straightforward. You've got Live One, which is a radio app, Hoopla, which is a library app. You can listen to podcasts and things like that right through this screen too. And on the steering wheel, if you hit the voice command prompt, so a light button push is going to be the command prompt for the vehicle. But if you do a long button push and hold, that's going to be your phone assistant instead. So short button push is the assistant for the Mercedes system, long button push is your Siri assistant, and then you've got the flexibility of tweaking out the layout of these icons a tiny little bit. So what you're going to do on your phone is go into Settings, General, CarPlay, you're going to find your vehicle, you can forget it, but what we want to do is customize. So let's say if you're not a fan of certain things, or maybe if you love audiobooks on top, and you also want Waze up there as well, you can adjust it out. Anything with a minus next to it, you can hit minus and then delete, and that actually removes it from the screen. It saves it at the bottom of the phone, so you can add it back in if you'd like to, but if you've played around with this too much and you don't like what you've done, along the top right side of the phone, there's a reset option. So you're just going to go reset, reset, and then that's going to bring you back to the factory default screen there instead. So that basic icon layout. Straightforward. If you hit the home icon here, then you could tap here. If you wanted to get back into CarPlay, you could hit that. You could play your audio that's on your phone, but hitting CarPlay brings you back into the CarPlay screen, go back this way, and then hopping back to your home screen there instead. Then if you go into your phone, you could hit the little settings icon along the very bottom in order to get to your connected devices. So we can see here that we're currently connected to the iPhone. You can hit this if you wanted to delete the device. So we're connecting back over through the phone here instead. There we go. Clicking back through brings you back just to your phone itself. Hitting the icon here again is going to bring you back to this screen. So we're strictly going to be making phone calls, but you can hook back up to audio again if you'd like to, or connect a new device. But that's how you set up Apple devices inside of this Mercedes screen. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, all you would do, push and hold on your phone again there. If you had a phone connected, we're just going to devices there. We're back on this screen. So just going to go ahead, connect a new device. And then on your phone, we're just waiting for, there we go, S9 Plus to show up. Or again, whatever your phone name is, PIN numbers here match up, and we're going ahead. So as of right now, I'm now connected. I can allow access to my messages and my contacts. This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. But you do have wireless Android Auto. Same thing, you could connect over USB if you'd like to, but you do have wireless available. So let's just go ahead and start. Do I want to allow access to my messages and my contacts? This is not my car, so I'm definitely saying no to that one. But we are just about connected. On the phone here, we have one more option, and we're connected through. Love it. One thing I like about Android Auto is that you do have full pinch to zoom capabilities with your map. You can hit the icon here if you wanted to do things like change it up to satellite view, 3D builds, look at some different route options to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that. You can mute out notifications, and then along the very bottom, so we've got this little split screen here, but along the bottom you can hit this in order to get to a little icon view. Now, if your Android device has Waze installed, but Waze is not showing up, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough on how you can add Waze and other Android apps to the device here. But going back, you can hit this icon to get to a little split screen again. You can hit here in order to be able to activate your Google Assistant. And then you can also do a long button push and hold on the steering wheel in order to activate your Google Assistant that way. You can hit this in order to go to a fuller screen map. So again, same thing, the climate is always going to be there, but you've got nice move around capabilities, pinch to zoom, etc. And then you can easily recenter. You can hit this in order to get back to your little split screen here again, where you've got some basic apps along with your connection and then your battery level too. Then back on the icon view, you've got the flexibility of adjusting this out a tiny little bit. So on your device, all you're going to do is search for Android Auto. You're going to go into Android Auto settings, and once you're there, you've got options, but we're looking for customized launcher. So similar to the iPhone side, if you wanted to move things around in order to customize them a little bit, you've got the flexibility to do it, but it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side of things. So if you want any of these changes to come into effect, what you need to do, go onto your home screen, your phone here, going to go into your settings, devices, and then you've got the two phones that have been connected. But what you're going to do is disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to then reconnect to Android Auto. So it'll take a second, launching back into our icon view there. You can see that the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side of things, but you still got some flexibility there. Hitting the icon here again, going back into our devices, you've got both phones that have been connected. You could do a little mix and match. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both, but you can do a mix and match of these four. So if you wanted one phone to be connected for phone calls, one phone connected for media, you can kind of do a mix and match this way. You hit the little three dots and then you can easily delete a device. So delete and delete. And let's delete this one as well. And a few seconds in and we're set to go. But that's how you set up Android and iPhone devices inside of this Mercedes screen. And hopping back home into our icon setup, next up is going to be radio. So you can see here, you've got all of your favorited stations. You've got SiriusXM available there, AM, FM, so you can easily move into different sources this way if you'd like to. And then you could mute out audio by just pushing the mute button in along the very bottom, or you could turn off the display or the system, but I'll explain all of those bottom buttons in just a minute here. But you can see there, we've got the current artist along the very bottom. You can search, you can see what other stations are available for SiriusXM. If you wanted to search, if you're a big fan of sports, news, talk, etc., you can easily search this way. And then I like it because it kind of breaks it in to FM or AM stations here as well. And when you're on this screen, you can see you've got the star icon there. So those are going to be all of your stations. So if you wanted to, you could go through and you can hit the little star icon in order to save or remove different stations from your favorite list. So you've got all of your favorited stations that we've set up this way. Searching again or looking at all of the available station options. I like it. You can easily delete entry. You can edit the entry there as well. So if you wanted to be able to adjust all of your presets, change things out, you wanted to delete certain things, you'd have the flexibility to do it. And if we hop back again, so we're back on SiriusXM, if you're a fan of the artist or the song, you'd have the flexibility of being able to get notifications here. So you hit the little notification icon, and then if either the song or the artist comes on, so on any SiriusXM station, you'd then get a notification letting you know that that song or that artist is playing. You can start over. You've got a series of different sound settings that are available. So you could change it to pure versus 3D, so more immersive audio experience. You've got your treble, mid-range, and bass, which are all maxed out. I definitely don't recommend this one. So the setup here, I just picked this press car up. So treble up a few points, mid cranked, bass up a few points is going to give you pretty good audio. But what I'd recommend is listen to one of your favorite songs. And while you're listening to that song, I want you to adjust these out until it sounds perfect for your ears. You can adjust your balance and fade, so if you wanted it rear focused, front focused, whatever the case may be, or recenter it back to the middle. Sound focused, you want it focused on people in the back, the front, etc., or you can tap in order to optimize it for all seats. And then SiriusXM, you've got your basic listening settings and then basic system information and things like that. There are a few different speaker choices available. This one has the upgraded 15-speaker Burmester system in the audio inside of this ride. So we're going to listen to a few songs here, but it's just coming out of the microphone, so there's no post-processing done whatsoever. Let's go ahead and... So regal. I can imagine going like a $120 on the highway listening to that song. All right, let's go for something a little bit more like a rock rappy instead. All right, and here we go. They want me to do something that can make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous. So if you're listening to it on headphones, the audio quality here is phenomenal. The upgraded system is great. So next up is going to be media. So as of right now, we don't have either Android Auto or Apple CarPlay connected. There are no Bluetooth devices, but if your phones were connected, that would show up as an available option. But we've also got USB. So as of right now, I've got all of these options here. Now, one cool thing is that you've got full USB video playback available inside of the ride. You could drop down into a smaller view, back to a full view there instead. So one thing is that it's good when you're parked, because the second you shift out, you can see there, it's going to turn it off, but it's going to bring it right back on again. So I love that you've got full video playback available here. Not every video source or video type is available, but you've got a boatload of different options that are available here instead. So if you wanted to listen to audio, if you wanted to watch video through a USB stick, you'd have the flexibility to do it. You could search, you could go this way in order to look at all of the available songs, artists, etc. that are on the USB stick. You can hit this in order to be able to add things to favorites or get back into all of your available audio settings instead. So media, I love that flexibility. I love that you can actually watch video right through the screen as well. you've got a series of settings that are available. I'm actually going to dive into this one last because it's pretty robust. There's an off-road mode available. So the off-road mode is not standard inside of the ride. It's available optionally, but you can see a series of different options that are available. So your tire pressure, your global positioning, and things like that. So you can adjust these out a little bit. You can also see your vehicle pitch and roll, so you can see which direction the vehicle's facing, your current location as well this way, your elevation, and then you've got a series of buttons down here. So you can hit this in order to get to this transparent hood mode. So as you go to drive, you can even see the tires that are rotating as you go. Where this comes into play is if you're going off-road and you're going over bumps, so there's obstacles and things like that, because you can see what's in front of you. You've got your park sensing system, your brake controls. There's also manual mode there instead. You could raise or lower the vehicle this way. Again, useful if you're going off-road, and then toggling your traction control system on or off as well. Swiping across, there's also an available hybrid mode, and the hybrid screen gives you a lot of different options. So you've got your different charging programs, so you can have it set for charging at home or at work. Where this comes into play is that you can have the charging cable lock or unlock when you're charged at these specific locations. You can have it charge based off of a specific location as well. So where the charging programs come into play is when we look at this. So your departure time. Where this comes into play is, let's say, if we want to edit this out. If you know you're going to leave at certain times during the week, so let's say every morning at 7:30 in the morning, Monday to Friday, you tend to leave. You could set your departure time. So we've got our departure time set up. You could also enter in a charging pause. So where this comes into play, let's say if you're going to be plugged in at home and you know from, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, those are the most expensive electricity rates. So you don't want to charge up during those times. By setting this charge window, that means that from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m., the vehicle is not going to charge at all. So useful if you want to save on electricity rates, but you can easily delete it if you'd like to, or just temporarily toggle it off instead. But I'd personally just recommend just keep yourself charging up, but that's a matter of preference. You can also open up the charging flap from the inside of the vehicle here. You can't close it, so don't tap that unless you want to get outside. And next up, you've got energy flow. So as you're driving, you might notice that the engine is shooting power back to the battery in order to charge it up. There's basic information for your vehicle. So you've got your hybrid option there, your accelerator versus your brake power that you're using, along with your vehicle pitch and roll. And then there are basics for your engine. So you can see what torque you're using, your power, your boost gauges, and things like that. So if you're a bigger fan of looking at these performance gauges, you'd have the flexibility of doing it as you drive through that hybrid screen. Back here with your devices, if you had multiple devices connected, those would show up. And then there's an available web browser where you'd be able to look at YouTube and then other things right through the screen here instead. And then the big one is going to be all of the available settings, and there are so many different things that are available. You might have additional options or not the same options, just depending on how you have this vehicle built out. But with driving, you've got your Eco Assist, so if you want to get the best possible economy. There's basics for collision avoidance, so brake assist. If you're going to get into an accident, it can automatically brake for you. And when do you want it to brake? So it essentially reduces the likelihood of an accident happening. Your blind spot system, so you can see there, toggles it off, on, etc. But if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, it's going to let you know. So it's going to highlight in your side view mirrors, letting you know that somebody's there. See, with attention assist, if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. If you don't like that one, just turn it off. You've got that flexibility, but distance trips, that actually is a pretty useful setting to keep enabled. For your camera, you can open the cover for the back end there. For parking, when you actually go to park, so when you're in reverse, if there were spots that were available, it would show you there, let you know what spots are available as you go. There are warning tones that are available, so it's essentially going to be the volume for these different tones. Do you want your audio to fade out? So if you have warnings coming up, so that beeping that you get as you get closer to obstacles, if you've got music playing, it's going to lower it. And it's the same way when you're in reverse. So if you just want to be able to focus on reversing, you can have that happen. And there's basics for move assist and things like that. There's nothing overly exciting there. Cross traffic alert, as you go to back up, if somebody's coming perpendicular, it can let you know of a potential collision. And that's the basics there for your vehicle. Manual shift, you can toggle that on here as well. You can control manual shift mode just using the paddles instead. You don't actually have to be in manual mode there. There are different trailer types available. Nothing exciting there. If you're towing, the towing capacity is not that big inside this vehicle, but you do have that available as an option. Easy entry exit is available for both the steering wheel as well as for the seat. And then with these settings enabled, when you go to turn the vehicle off with the steering wheel position, it's essentially going to push the steering wheel back, and then it'll also slide the seat back in order for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. But it's going to default it to whatever it's currently set up to. You can toggle that blind on or off so you can't open. Occupant alert. When you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to remind you to check the back seats. And then open and close, there's nothing exciting here. Tow away protection, which we saw here. So again, you can get to a few of these things a few different ways. Let's see here. Do you want your mirrors to automatically fold in when you go to lock the vehicle? And then you've got an individual mode. So as you go to adjust out your different drive modes down here, you can have it set up so when you're in your individual mode, what do you want your drive system to be like? What do you want your steering to be like? Sport versus comfort. And then do you want your stability control to be comfort versus sport instead? So as you move through all of your different drive modes, that's going to cause the engine to potentially come on, but you can see here there are different modes. So there's different drive programs that are available. Your electric mode is specifically that. If there was enough battery power, it would essentially be able to run in strictly electric mode instead. And then you've got, you saw there, a series of different options. Sport mode holds onto the RPMs a little bit longer to give you a sportier performance, or that available individual mode here instead. From here, basic options for lights, nothing overly exciting there. Interior lighting, do you want that light on delay to happen? So when you go to lock the vehicle, do your lamps turn off right away or do they turn off gradually? Your exterior lights, when you go to lock the vehicle, do they stay on for up to 60 seconds? Or when you go to hit lock, do they just turn off right away? And then ambient light, which we've seen, and you've got the flexibility of adjusting out the color scheme here or choosing a multicolor effect instead. So again, you'll see a lot of these things duplicated a few different spots. Let's see here. With your display, you can adjust the brightness of not only the central display here, but also for the cluster screen. So if you want it brighter, darker, etc., for both displays, you'd have that flexibility. You can toggle the display off. So if you wanted to toggle the whole system display off, so if we did this, turns it off completely. Your home screen, there are a few different home screen layouts that are available here too. So if we hop back home for a second, you can see there, very different design look compared to if we were to hop back into our settings again here. I'm not crazy about this one. The icon view actually is kind of neat there. I am personally a bigger fan though of this look instead. But that one's going to come, yeah, look at these big bright buttons. So that's going to come down to a matter of preference. Do you kind of want like a no frills option there? Do you want more of like that old school style swipe instead? You'd have that option. Measurement units, do you want to be in either kilometers or miles? And when you adjust that out, you'll see that change inside of the cluster screen. And that's just one of the big benefits of having a fully digital screen. You can easily adjust this out. Do you want an additional speedometer there? So you can see that it is in miles per hour at the top there, but because this is a Canadian spec vehicle, so you've got the flexibility of adjusting out. Different languages are available, so do you want Dutch, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese? There are a boatload of options. And then keyboard, nothing exciting with the keyboard there. Elements, so your touch control, how sensitive do you want it to be? Do you want to get feedback? So hold on. So you can get no feedback, so no button beep versus normal or a loud option. Let's see, your audio. Parktronic, so you can set your current tone. So as you get closer to obstacles, how loud do you want that to be? How loud do you want your phone call volume or your ringtone volume to be? Your voices, you can also set all of these up. So you're essentially setting everything into a unique option here instead. Internet and Bluetooth, you've got a wireless hotspot that's available. You can toggle Wi-Fi off or Bluetooth off completely. So if you never want to be able to connect a phone, you could adjust it this way. There's some data protection options. The big one here is system pin. So with this pin set up, the screen essentially comes locked out, so people can't just look through all of your individual settings. You can also change up permissions here as well. And then one cool thing, so down the middle here, you've got this little fingerprint scanner. So you do have biometrics that are available here. So you can essentially lock this out to your individual fingerprint instead if you wanted to. And then got some basics so you can adjust out your date and time. You're in the auto mode here, but let's say if you live somewhere where you straddle a time zone and it constantly flips you from one time zone to the other, you can permanently lock it out to any of these other options instead. You can set the format here for your date. You can adjust the time out, plus or minus a few minutes. Do you want to adjust out for automatic daylight savings time? Do you want to toggle it on or off yourself manually? You can see if there are any software updates available, and then you can do a soft reboot. So if the screen's giving you problems, you can just do a soft reboot instead to essentially clear the cache out. That should solve the majority of issues that you might be facing. I mentioned here, so the applique down the middle and wrapping all the way throughout the dash, it can be customized right from the factory. There are a lot of different options available. You've got a good amount of space here, a few USB Type-C power points with some cup holders there. And tucked in the very back is also a wireless charge pad. The armrest here, nice slow open with some additional power points down low. Then you've got a fully lockable glove box that has a good amount of space. Now, one thing, there is a 12-volt power point here, but it is a weird, there you go, you can just see it. Such an odd space for it. So just go with knowing the 350e has it, it's just tucked away in the oddest of spaces. Like honestly, if you didn't know to look for it, you'd have no idea that it's available there, but it's there. Overall visibility inside of the ride is great. Up overhead, there's an auto-dimming rearview mirror inside of the car. You've got all of your basics, so your cabin control lights, along with the flexibility of calling for help, so an SOS tow mode. And then you've got this little slider here, and the slider here is going to be for the sunshade. So incredibly slow open, but that just opens things up inside of this car so nicely. I love the panoramic sunroofs. I normally don't drive with the roof open, but the shade, yes. And then, oh, look at that. Just opens things up. Is that as far? Yeah, that's as far as it's gonna go. So not a full open, but I mean at the same time, having a panoramic sunroof, it's pretty cool. I just wish that opened up a little bit faster, but still, it's nice. Now, up overhead here, you've got a little ticket receipt holder on the inside. There's also a vanity mirror up overhead there. And then this little feller, ooh, every time with the Mercedes. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, stretches out to block all of the sun. That might be hitting your face. There's a little assist handle overhead here as well. But like I said, the spacing here is great. Inside of the second row of the ride, you've got your unlock lock buttons with some speakers, a nice highlight along the door handle with some storage down low. And then, space-wise, so with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, foot space, and head space is okay. Like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of headspace. So not a ton back here, but I mean, if you're shorter than 6 feet, you shouldn't have a problem. And one downside to the seats is that they are locked into place in the sense that you can't recline them or slide them forwards or backwards. So they're locked into place there. Feature-wise back here, you're going to find some basic vent controls. There's a little storage tray, and then there are a few USB Type-C power points that are down low. You're going to find map pockets behind both the passenger and the driver's side. Then up overhead, there's a handle, hook, and a light along both the passenger side and the driver's side. So a little handle, hook, and then an overhead light there too. Charging for the 350e is done along the driver's side. Pop it open there, and as a default, it's got charging support for both level 1 and for level 2, but there is the option for DC supercharging as well if you need it. The GLC 350e has a 24.8 kilowatt hour battery, and that translates to 87 kilometers or about 54 miles at a maximum, which I mean still is pretty solid at the same time. So the overall charge times are going to depend on if you're level 1, level 2, or level 3 DC supercharging, and what your total power draw is. I don't have a level 2 charge station at home, which means that my only option is level 1 right to a regular wall plug. With a roughly 1 kilowatt hour draw, I'm looking at about a full day to go from 0 to 100% charged. So that's something you have to take into account. How much are you actually going to be driving? That's going to dictate whether you decide to go level 1 or go for a level 2 home charging station instead. But here's the thing. With a 50 plus mile range, so 87 kilometers, realistically, you could be driving in fully electric mode the majority of the time. But I do like that you've got support for DC supercharging available right at time of purchase. If you don't get it at time of ordering, it's not like you can really add it in aftermarket. So if you know you're constantly going to be on the road, it might be worth it to pony up a couple $100 right from the factory to get it done. Like I said, level 2, you'd be more than okay. I'll charge up in a couple hours, worst case scenario. The rear end styling of the 350e looks great as well. There's dual tip exhaust inside of the ride. You've got the reverse park sensing system. There's a backup camera and the rear wiper. You're going to find LED tail lamps inside of the ride that do look pretty good. And I like the overall style of them, the roundedness, and then also the little black bezel that traces all the way throughout. Looks solid. There is the option of towing inside of the 350e as well. Max towing capacity inside of the ride when you go for the option from the factory is a little under 3,300 pounds. I think it's 3,287 pounds is what it actually rings in at. So small trailers, boats, things like that, you'd be more than covered off here. One thing to consider though is that if you are towing inside of an electric, your electric range will be cut down. The amount it's cut down is going to depend on how much you're towing and what the weather's like. We've got snow on the ground out here, so it is fairly cold, which means that you won't be able to tow as far in fully electric mode, but it is available if you need it. And then getting into the trunk can be done so many different ways. There's a button just on the driver's side door. You can use the key fob to do it. Just underneath the Mercedes logo on the back, there's a button that you can push. Then you're also going to find a foot activated liftgate. So as long as you've got the fob on you, just going to swipe your foot underneath. I love the feature, but the only downside to foot-activated liftgates is that if the sensors are covered in snow, ice, mud, etc., they won't open up. But you saw there, lots of ways to get into the trunk of this ride. Feature-wise back here, there's a 12-volt power point off to the left-hand side, along with releases for the second row seats. But before I get there, you are going to find the option for our cargo shade from the factory. Benefit there is that it's going to protect all of the valuables you might have in the trunk. Then you're going to find a little case in the back that contains the charge cable. So level 1 charge cable right from the factory, which is absolutely useful since this is a plug-in hybrid. As I mentioned, you do have the option of going for a level 2 charger aftermarket, home charging station, whatever the case may be. This is just a regular carpeted mat you're going to find in the back here. Then lifting up, you're going to find a little carrying case that has the air compressor and then the goop. So if you ever puncture a tire, you can try to seal it up yourself. One of the benefits of being a Mercedes owner is that you have access to roadside assistance. And that's going to be good for things like tire changing, fuel delivery, lockout, winching services, and so many other things. So no mini spare tire inside of this ride, but there are different options available to you. In order to fold down the second row seats, you're just going to pull the little buttons along the side in order to drop them down. And it's 60% on the driver, 40 on the passenger for the split. But one nice thing is that if you still need 2 seats in the middle, you can fold down the middle seat by itself, and then you can manually fold the seats down yourself from the second row. And then the measurements that you're looking at, specifically behind the first row, are going from right where the trunk door would close to just in behind the little armrest between the first row seats. So if the driver's seat, passenger seat were forwards or backwards, you'd gain or lose a little bit of extra space, but there is a pretty solid amount of space inside of this ride. Filling up fuel inside of the 350e is done just along the passenger side. One thing is that it is a locked cover, and that's because this is a plug-in hybrid, so it's got to do with depressurization. So just along the driver's side door, you're also going to find a release for the fuel door. Takes a second for it in order to spool through in order to open up. There it is. But you've got your locked cover there that also has a capped system. One thing about Mercedes vehicles is that you do have to use at least a 91 octane inside of the ride. So that is the minimum recommended from the manufacturer. Here's the thing, inside of the owner's manual, it does say that if you're in a pinch, you can use an 87. So you don't want to get into a habit of using an 87 octane. But if you're in a pinch, the gas station you're at doesn't have a 91 octane or higher, you could use an 87. I would fill up a couple liters or a gallon at most and get to a station that's got premium instead. But you want to use a premium fuel inside of this ride to get the best possible performance, prevent engine knocking or damaging the components there. The overall fuel economy that you get inside of the 350e is going to depend on a few things. What are your driving habits like? Are you the type of person when the light turns green, you're going to gun it? Or are you more of like a slower accelerator instead? It's also going to depend on whether or not you're charged up completely, because if you're fully charged up and you're granny driving it, you can stay in electric driving the majority of the time, getting incredible fuel economy. And let's try a little en route handling here. It's like a cloud. Oh, that sounds mean. And it's just a 2-liter engine. Very nice, very nice. But the acceleration there was fantastic. The handling around the bend is great. The ride is incredibly quiet as well, like incredibly quiet. You can't really hear much road noise inside of this car whatsoever. Gotta love that active noise cancellation. Yeah, is there still a little bit of road noise? Yeah, I'm going highway speed and you're in a car, so you can still hear some things, but compared to most cars out there, it is incredibly quiet in the interior of the GLC. That's, I guess, the Mercedes lineup in general. You're only going to find the 350e with Mercedes all-wheel drive system and the handling that you get inside of the ride. It's so good. It's so good. Literally zero complaints about the way that this car handles. And turning radius is going to be a little bit trickier because there's snow everywhere. Oh, that's nice though. Yeah, the handling here. It's fantastic. And that was everything you needed to know about the Mercedes GLC 350e. You can find all of the build details for this Mercedes down in the description, along with links off to Mercedes Canada and US. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful. And until I see you next time, take care. Got this little Mercedes scuff plate here that glows in the light. We've got a little Mercedes. You've got a little Mercedes scuff plate here that grows.